So in conclusion,
you just started.
Just after Christmas, in Luke chapter 2, sorry, I passed over the holiday altogether. Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. When they had finished the days, as they returned, the boy Jesus lingered behind in Jerusalem, and Joseph and his mother did not know it. But supposing him to have been in the company, they went a day's journey and sought him among their relatives and acquaintances. So when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem seeking him. Now so it was that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. So when they saw him, they were amazed, and his mother said to him, "Son, why have you done this to us? Look, your father and I have sought you anxiously." And Jesus said to them, "Why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my Father's business?" But they did not understand the statement which he spoke to them. And no one else does either. Gosh, everybody likes to talk about this. Raise your hand if you ever heard the story about when Jesus' parents left him home alone. Ah! Okay, anyone ever heard that? So that's where they got that idea. Jesus was left home alone. Ah! Okay? For 3 days. Not 3 days, it was 4 days actually. It was a day there and then 3 days, maybe 5 days. Okay. That's when Jesus learned to shave. It was when his parents left him home alone. I could do this all day.
Oh, nice.
As a songwriter, I've learned that songwriters have different ways of coming up with songs. Sometimes you have a great idea for a song. Sometimes you have a melody. Sometimes just all the words come to you. But oftentimes you just have a great title and hope you can come up with a song so you could use the title. Hence the sermon, Home Alone, starring Jesus Christ. I have no sermon plan, but I loved the idea when I read it. I read it the other day and I went, oh my gosh, Jesus was left home alone. And it's Christmas movie, you know, it just goes on and on. And what about the devil wanting to come and rob and steal, and you know, the devil's Daniel Stern, of course, and of course the devil's the Jewish guy, but anyways, Jesus was left home alone, and the famous story is that when his parents got back, he was in the temple preaching, and everyone was astonished by how amazing he was. There's a book of fairy tales in the Catholic Bible called the Apocrypha, and it tells all kinds of stories of when Jesus was a kid. They're really kind of cool, actually. And people love to speculate what Jesus was like as a kid. And Anne Rice, the author of the Interview with the Vampire books, put out 2 novels about Jesus as a child, and they're absolutely brilliant and beautiful. They're not biblically sound in any way, but they're reasonable speculation. In other words, really good fairy tales. But they're really interesting. They made a movie out of them, and not so good, but the books are nice. But people have speculated for a very long time, what must Jesus have been like as a child? He was a child. Maybe an exceptional child, but a child. I know it's hard to imagine, but I was 12 once, and I was an exceptional child. Trust me, trust me. I was off the charts, genius, smart, and all that. And I was excelling in music, and I was performing professionally and getting paid for it. And I knew how to read and comprehend anything that was put in front of me. And if it wasn't in language I understood, I could look up languages in books that compared language and understand it after all. And at 12, I was getting ready for my bar mitzvah. It was not uncommon for even the nominal Jewish kids to be in the sanctuary discussing scriptures and astonishing people with their knowledge and authority. Because some kids, and I want to, right? And other kids are like, hello, I've arrived, I'm the cutest thing, ask my mother. Guess which one I wasn't? Right?
Right.
So Jesus arrives with jazz hands, right, and blows everyone away. Okay, so we need to knock him down a few notches. Sorry, God, but the truth is true. At 12, he should have been at the sanctuary. If he couldn't find his parents, that was probably the meeting place. And everybody in the community knew everybody in the community, so everyone figured out what had happened to Jesus very quickly. But Mary didn't charge her cell phone. So they were going to have to wait till somebody figured it out and came back. But Mary and Joseph had to go to where they were going, so they had to do what they were doing. So sooner or later they'd come back for baby Jesus, and baby Jesus was doing what baby Jesus would have been doing at 12, and that is preparing for his bar mitzvah. It doesn't say he was 12 years old and 1 day, or 12 years old and 364 days. But you usually prepare for your bar mitzvah in America for a good 6 months, maybe the entire year, because you have to read the scriptures with authority for your bar mitzvah in Hebrew. So depending on, your parents and the availability of a tutor, in America you do prepare. I know that in America, we prepare for weddings 2 years in advance, right? Even if you don't even have a spouse, the mother of the bride is preparing the wedding for, 2 years in advance, or the bride, if there is a bride, prepares for the wedding early, right? Because you're reserving stuff. Well, bar mitzvahs are very similar to that. They have to be just so. So, back in the day, a Jewish kid would have had a better grasp on scriptures than, say, I did in America, being in a nominal Jewish home. However, as you know, some kids are more into it than others. I was really into it, so I took to Hebrew very well. And I can imagine that when I was 11, I was begging my parents to let me start my tutoring. I was the one that wanted to go to temple on Friday nights, that liked it, and my parents didn't want to go. So imagine God Almighty, what he was like as a kid. He probably picked that stuff up pretty fast, because in the beginning was the Word, and that was that guy. So he was literally learning himself. Literally learning himself. Not figuratively learning himself. Literally learning himself. So he probably took to it like my pit bull and hot dogs. You know what I'm saying? So it's pertinent to the time because he's on meds. So he's on meds. So the real story that nobody ever tells is that Jesus was left, do it with me, home alone! Ah! John Hughes wrote Home Alone after a string of hits in the 80s that he wrote and directed that really captured how much it sucks to be a kid in a world of reckless, selfish, irresponsible grown-ups. And the first movie that he really brought that home in was in 16 Candles, a horror story, if I ever saw one. Never liked this movie, a horror story. Everyone forgets Molly Ringwald's birthday. In a 20-minute sitcom where they hurry up and get to the punchline, that's fine, but in an hour-and-a-half movie, it was really very sad. Every single person in her life forgot her birthday. But every single person in her life showed up in her life that day anyways. So every time someone showed up, she's like, okay, finally someone's going to remember my birthday, but everybody forgot her birthday. Everybody forgot her birthday. Me personally, I don't think the payoff at the end was worth it. Everyone still forgot her birthday. That's all I can remember. And it's funny because I have a daughter named Molly, and Molly really loves John Hughes movies. And I said to her, I go, you know, 1 year, I'm going to 16 Candles you for your birthday. I'm going to give you a John Hughes birthday. Every year for her birthday, she wants me to give her another John Hughes movie on DVD. I'm going to give it to you in your real life. I'm going to 16 Candles you. And she's like, I don't think that'll be a very nice birthday. Well, imagine if you were 16 Candled and Home Alone. It's the same concept. It's the same concept that suddenly the world around you has clearly forgotten about you for whatever reason. Here's what I'll say about that. The people who do the forgetting think there's a perfectly logical explanation for it. The people on the receiving end of having been forgotten do not. That's how that works. See, if people on the receiving end of it say, oh no, it's okay, oh no, it's okay, they're lying. The reality is at some point in everyone's life, they will be totally forgotten. Isn't that a nice thought? Isn't that a nice thought? That's why Home Alone made sense. That's why the premise of Home Alone makes sense. See, no matter how ridiculous the movie is, the initial premise works because there's a part in every human being that remembers a moment where they felt deserted by everyone. Whether it was out of meanness or out of just accident and coincidence. I know I've had my birthday forgotten by very important people before, and like a parent, you know, a partner, you know, I mean, I've really lived through it, you know, that's not the worst I've experienced, by the way, but I know that has to be something people have experienced, that somewhere along the line, you know, someone is going to forget our birthday, or without the advent of Facebook, everyone would forget our birthday. Who relies on Facebook to let you know the people you really care about have a birthday? Because year after year you had to put it in an appointment book that you didn't own. I actually have one, so I actually write important birthdays because people get mad if you forget. Anyone know me around my birthday knows, you know, wait, you're forgetting it's my birthday. I will call everyone the night before and say, you know, tomorrow's my birthday, just so you know. No excuses. I think it's a courtesy. I know it's obnoxious. I know, but I get more gifts and money than anybody I know. But it is a courtesy. I would not mind if people called me and said, I just want you to know my birthday's next week. You know, I would appreciate that. I really do. I don't find that obnoxious at all. It says to me, I care if you remember so much, I'm going to tell you, so you better not forget, because then maybe next year I won't even care if you live or die. That's what it tells me. But I think people have been left behind, you know, left somewhere. I mean, I think people have gone on vacation without remembering it. I think that happens. First off, it happened on another TV show just the other night on Fresh Off the Boat. They went to go see Home Alone. No, they went to go see, that would have been better. They went to go see Jingle All the Way, and they forgot one of their kids and left him home alone. And I went, see, if it happens in two different places, then it must be a real thing, right? So, anyone ever had anyone forget your birthday? No? Anyone? I think they forget more than they remember. And they've probably forgotten birthdays. They see, okay, let's divide the room. The people who had, you see, they hate you already. Okay. So, well, what did Jesus do when his security vanished and the world around him disappeared? Because his parents were his everything at that age, and realized he was alone. He ran to the sanctuary. I think it's fascinating. I'm surprised someone else hasn't come up with a crafty sermon about this yet. That I've never heard one, because I mean I think it's sitting right there. That, you know, what do you do when your earthly parents desert you? You run to your Father in heaven. It's just sitting there. It's just sitting. I mean, that's not even a stretch. That's biblical. It's biblical. But it is also a biblical fact that every human being will disappoint you at some point. That is a fact. The weird combination of our reasonable expectations and reasonable human distraction and failure mixed with our unreasonable expectations. And you've got to be kidding. People are out of control, nuts and selfish and reckless and irresponsible. We're all doomed to being disappointed by another human being. We're doomed to be left behind. We're doomed to be left home alone. We're doomed to have someone 16 handle us. We're doomed to have something happen. I will widen the net by saying, I know people who waited for years for an inheritance that disappeared. Does that help? You know what I'm saying? Well, you'd rather someone forget they'd forgotten your birthday than forget the inheritance. With me? You know what? Seriously, that's big, right? That's big if you just keep them in your life because you're clinging on for the, you know, payday. Now, I'm not talking about you. I was talking about me. So, good thing the people who love me never watch my videos on the internet. So, it's the truth. It's the truth. I wasn't going to sing Don't Touch Me anymore. I wasn't going to sing it and record it until the stars of that song were no longer alive. But then I realized they don't pay any attention to me anyways. I could do it on their front doorstep and they wouldn't know I was doing it. Everybody is disappointed by someone. Speaking of which, this really happened. And I think I was somewhere between 10 and 12, but probably more like between 8 and 10. My parents went out of town as often as they could. If that sounds like my parents ran away from home to get away from their children as often as they could, that's exactly what I said. And so my brothers were older and they had friends they could stay with, or they could stay with my grandparents, but I needed, you know, someone to babysit me. And so my parents would pay the illegal housekeeper to stay the weekend with me, and then they would go out of town. And one weekend, the minute my parents went out of town, a man showed up at the door to collect the housekeeper. They ran off and got married and never came back. So, and this is this exactly, this is the story my parents always told, that when they came home, the front door was wide open. And I was sitting in a chair in the entry hall. That's the story they tell. And it's the truth. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. And all I could think was, I'm afraid someone's going to come in. You know, I'm afraid that something can happen. But I was too scared to close the door and lock it. I must have been pretty young. Must have been pretty young. Because by 12, I knew where my parents hid their gun, and I had stolen all their credit cards, and you know, so I had been ordering pizzas, you know. But my parents let me home alone, and I was terrified, and I sat vigil, waiting for the maid to come back, and then realized the maid's not coming back, waiting for my parents to come back. And then I was left alone all weekend, and nobody knew. Nobody knew. And I think that, as extreme a tale as that may be, I think a lot of people feel left alone and terrified a lot without the aid of the housekeeper getting married and the front door being left open, wide open for a weekend, and all the stuff that went with it. I think a lot of people feel that way. I think a lot of people feel deserted in this life, and I think a lot of people, I think everybody will feel that way at some point about something. Whether it be for a minute or an hour or for an entire weekend until your parents come back and you realize you were safer home alone, sitting in a chair with nobody in the house with the front door open than you were when your parents got back. But that's just my story. That's just my story. But Jesus' parents were picked by God to raise the Son of God, and they left him behind. Even the best parents, can you imagine what social media would have done to them? Well, that's not even his father anyways, and she's a whore and having a child out of, you know, the bastard child Jesus, and he's got the devil in him, and it's probably his fault. He's probably, throw him in the gorilla cage, you know, so, you know. I mean, seriously, seriously. Remember that little incident with that gorilla and all? Well, Mary accidentally let go of Jesus' hand, and she was picked by God Almighty to be his mama. I think it's a fact that it's guaranteed that every parent will make this mistake. Every parent has made some kind of, oops, I forgot my kid mistake. I remember one night where we had a kid show up at the door. A little girl showed up at the door because a homeless person thought it might be mine. And that we went out trying to find the owner of said child. And when the owner of said child showed up, another person who was here, who had 2 kids here, totally flipped out and insisted we call the police. And I said, can't we show a little mercy? It's church and all. I'm like, no, oh my gosh, this kid was collected by a homeless person on a very dangerous corner that you see cars skidding out all the time. And I said, well, it's my neighbor, and I know my neighbors, and I'll talk to him. But no, we have to call the cops. So I said, you know what, do what you're going to do. She went in to get her phone. I told the guy, if you run away, you won't see the police. But he stayed to face the medicine, so I stayed out of it. And he got a warning, and everything was fine, and everybody was fine. And then after church that night, said lady went home with only one of her children. She forgot one on my couch.
Priceless.
So everybody leaves. I'm cleaning up, putting chairs away. There's a knock at my door, and I open it up, and I said, why are you here? And she goes, I'm here for my other child. And I said, oh, I should probably call the police. Can you believe this happened? I mean, you can't make that stuff up. If you saw that on a TV show or a movie, you say, they just set it up to have this gag. That really happened. And she rolled her eyes at me, and she said, my child is safe in your home. It's a little different. 2 weeks before, we had an argument that she kept leaving my door unlocked and not telling me. People could just have walked in and taken her kid and left, and I wouldn't have even known about it. Literally wouldn't have known about it. Every parent makes these mistakes. Every parent. And anyone who knows what I'm talking about, whether or not you appreciate or not appreciate her parenting skills, you will say she's one hell of a mama bear who protects her kids and is not going to be someone who's going to like lose track of a kid. And very surprising that happened. I thought it was flawless and worth mentioning, and even with whatever consequence will come for having mentioned it on the internet. But if you mess with me, I'll name names. All right, so everyone's going to have this experience. Everyone's going to have a memory. Everyone's going to have a memory of a parent being better with one kid than another, and you feeling hurt and abandoned and unloved and forgotten. Everybody has these experiences, and we accumulate them and carry them around all through our lives. All through our lives. And they dictate how we react to future things. If it's happened a little bit, maybe we let it ride off. If it's happened a little bit, maybe because we don't have any experience with it, we overreact. It just depends how we're going to respond, but we all have these experiences, and they really affect how we act and react socially. And in the America that we're going to now live and die in, everything is about how we react and interact socially now. Everything is. Everything is about, are we going to get butthurt or not? I mean, butthurt wasn't even a phrase until we needed to have a phrase for getting our feelings hurt about something that deep down inside we know probably shouldn't hurt our feelings as much as it does. Now we have butthurt. I don't like butthurt. I don't like the term, because I think if something hurts your feelings, that's it. It doesn't matter if it's reasonable or not. You can't help that. It's what you do next you can help. But based on your life experience of how many times that's happened, the odds are you're not going to do what the person who hurt your feelings wants you to do right to make it more comfortable for them. You're probably going to do the next thing that makes it worse for them, and thus they're going to respond and make it worse for you. But Jesus' parents left him home alone. I'm tired of doing that. They left him home alone. And if you think about it, they didn't really give him a very nice first Christmas either. I mean, they didn't even like pay for a 4-star hotel or something, right? And if it wasn't because of God providing gifts, did they have anything for him? No, they had nothing. They had nothing that they had so little for their kid's first Christmas to give him that everyone thought that the little animated clay puppet thing playing the bongo drums was a positive. I mean, that's how bad. I mean, they failed at Christmas, they failed at babysitting. Jesus' parents were failures. They'd be ripped apart on social media, And yet, they were selected by God. We are guaranteed that the people we love are going to disappoint us, they're going to betray us, they're going to fail us on many different levels, intentionally and unintentionally. That's going to happen. There's a time. I'll be back after a brief word from our sponsors.